Hello, it's Shari here, and I am going to be making this reveal wheel card with the little submarine, and I'm going to show you how I made that today. This is a little different than the regular reveal wheel because I'm putting an image over that opening, but it's super fun variation on the card. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out my front panel. I've already got the little puzzle piece in. I'm holding it in with some tape, and I'm going to cut it from some neenah Solar White cardstock. And I'm cutting this top panel from white because I'm going to do some inking on it. Now for the wheel and the other little wheel piece there, I just cut it out of some blue so that you're going to see that through the window. That's going to be the windows of my submarine. So that is why I used the blue cardstock for the wheel. Now I need to cut a back piece that's going to go behind it, and I've just cut that out of some mermaid cardstock, and that's because my card base I'm going to make out of mermaid cardstock, and this way this back piece that just holds everything together just disappears really. So here is my card base. I've cut a piece of cardstock down to make a top folding card, and I'm just going to score it. And this is the way I do all my card bases. I just make them as I go. So the reveal wheel panel is not as big as a regular A2 size card, so you're going to see a border around it, and that is why I have picked a colored cardstock to use as my card base. So now when I have all that reveal wheel mechanism together, the back piece is just going to blend in with the background. Now to do the inking on the front panel, I have some Distress Oxide inks here in some lovely ocean colors, and I'm starting with peacock feathers, and I did 3 different spots, and that's kind of my magic number is 3. Then I'm going to go in with Mermaid Lagoon and just go around those 3 kind of areas, go in the other corner. Then I'm going to go in with some Salty Ocean and do the same thing. And I just go back and forth when the colors meet and sort of soften the edges between the two. And get rid of that harsh edge between my 2 colors. Now that I've got all these blues and greens on here, I'm going to go in with the purple. And I left some small spaces for the purple. I didn't want the purple to be too overwhelming. But I do like that the purple adds a nice little pop of contrast in the blues and the teals. So where that purple overlaps with the blues, I'm just going to go back with the blues and blend it out. And you can see it kind of makes even a new color between the purple and the blue where the 2 colors blend together. So now that I have my panel finished, I'm just taking a spray bottle here. I'm holding it really far up. I'm just spraying all over it because I wanted a whole bunch of little droplets to make some texture and make those Distress Oxides oxidize and have that white pigmenty chalky look to it. So I'm just going to heat it with the heat tool because that was quite a bit of water all over just a regular piece of cardstock, and this will flatten it out and dry it quickly. I did place it under a block to help flatten it out as well. So now I'm stamping out my little submarine with some jet black ink, and I'm going to do some coloring, and of course I'm going to color him yellow because the submarine is always yellow in my mind. So I started out with a pretty bright yellow, but it was a little too bright. So I'm going to go back in with a little bit of a darker one, and I'm just going to leave that brightness right in the center there where the windows are. Going in with a darker color, and then I will blend that out with the middle color and smooth it out with the really light color through the center. Now I'm going to go in with some reds and add some accents. And I'm also going to use some dark blues for these accents as well. I was trying to think of colors that would stand out from the blue background, so that's why I went with some darker things for the accents. So I used the coordinating die to cut it out. Now I need to cut out my windows. So I'm just using a hole punch here, and I'm punching a hole in each of these. And it actually looks pretty good. It kind of leaves the white border just like the die leaves. And if I had lined them up a little better, I might have just left it that way. But I wanted to make sure I had some enough room for the little faces I'm going to put in here. So I am just going in, now that I have a hole in the center, and going in with my scissors and going around that circle and fussy cutting off that extra piece of white so that my cut line is right on the edge of the windows of the submarine. So I'm just going to continue and do that for all 3 windows. And now that I have those cut out, I'm going to go in with a black pen and just go back around that circle and make sure that any white that's left over is black and doesn't stand out. This is a lot easier to do with a pen than to try to keep going in and cutting out tiny little pieces of white. You end up with an uneven circle. It's just easier to cover it up with a black pen. So now you can see how my little windows are cut out perfectly there. So now I need to assemble my reveal wheel. So I've got a little brad here, and I'm going to put it through the small circle. And then I will put the larger circle on top of that. And the score lines that the die cuts, you can see them there, are going to be on the front side. The little circle goes on the back, and the score lines go on the front. So I'm just going to add some foam adhesive squares to the little circle. And you can see that this spins nicely on there. And I was just tightening it up a little bit here. It kind of shifted a little. So now that I've got this on there, I can attach this to the back panel. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to take my front panel and use those score lines to line it up with the window. So you kind of go to where you can see the score line and then push it up till it's right above the window. And then you do the same thing on the notch on the right side. So you shift it out so you can see the score line, and then you shift it back in so that it's right inside. And then you know you have it in the right place. And then you can just line it up with that back panel, and those adhesive squares, which are on the back of the circle, will stick to the back panel. And then it will spin nice and freely. Now in Kelly's videos, she took the circle off to do the stamping. Mine's a little different because I need to be able to line up those faces inside those circles. So I'm going to go ahead and glue on my submarine. So I've put some glue around, and I'm going to do this a little differently. My submarine is face down, and I want to make sure that those windows are lined up in the opening. So I'm gluing it from the back side so that I can see the windows through the cut on the front panel. So you can see there how that's going to line up, and you're going to see the blue through the windows of the submarine. Now I'm just drawing some pencil lines, and I'm dividing this circle into quarters. So I'm going to stamp 4 different versions of the little smiley faces. And I'm going to stamp through the holes. So to hold it in place, I just put a binder clip to hold the front panel to the back panel, put it on the bottom so that my wheel can still spin. And then I'm going to use various smiley faces from the How You Bean set and stamp them directly through the windows. So what you didn't see is those lines that are a quarter. I have it going straight through, vertically through that center window of the submarine. It's hard to see, but that lets me know that I am lined up. So once I have these 3 stamped, I can turn my wheel till the next line shows up in the center window. So I know that I have turned it a complete quarter. And I'll just erase these lines once I'm done stamping all my little faces. This is the only way I can see where the lines end up. I feel like this is better lining up than trying to look for the lines on just the notch side. Actually, if you line it up with the window, there should be one in the notch too, because it should be the actual quarter, a vertical one and then a horizontal one, if that makes sense. And these little smiles from How You Bean fit in there perfectly. So I'm down to my last set of smiles here. I actually used the little heart too on some of these. I thought that was kind of cute because it fits perfectly in there too. You could just stamp different colored hearts if you wanted to. That would be cute as well. But see, now you can see how they spin around and they end up right in the porthole frames where they should be. So now I can take off that front panel and use my eraser to erase those pencil lines that were my guides. I've added some foam adhesive to my backer piece here all around the wheel. It's easier to add it to this back piece because you can see where your wheel is than it would be to add it to the front. And now I can just take my front panel and line it up and stick it onto those adhesive squares. And it still turns perfectly. It's so cute. So now to decorate the rest of my card, I've taken some Cilantro cardstock here and the Bayou backdrop, and I've just partially cut this. I'm going to chop it up with my scissors here. I'm going to cut off that frame on the side. I'm going to keep the frame that's along the bottom because it holds these little pieces together, but this is going to look more like seaweed because I'm going to have it come up from the bottom versus the top. So you can see I was just measuring to where it's the same width as that front panel. And I'm going to keep that frame along the bottom. It holds those pieces together, and I'll just cover that up with the sentiment banner in the end. I'm going to cut another piece just from the scrap, and I'm just going to use the corner here. It's not even going to be the full width of the card front actually, but I just wanted some taller seaweed on that left side. So I'm just going to cut off that far side of the frame. It doesn't matter that the seaweed or the frame has got a notch on the bottom from cutting it from a scrap because it's all going to get covered up. So I can just glue these two together. I'm going to use my glue tube and just put one line of glue along the bottom of that frame and then just stack it behind just like that. And then I can also do the same to glue it to the front. So I added glue all the way to the bottom, and then I went through and did just a couple little dots around on some of the leaves. I wanted some of the seaweed to kind of pop up from the back and not be completely stuck down because I'm going to take my little images that I'm going to add to the bottom and sort of tuck them behind the seaweed a little bit so they're swimming in the seaweed. Here's a sentiment banner I cut from some green watercolor wishes paper, and I'm just lining up my sentiment stamps on this block, and I will stamp the sentiment "Hope you have a sublime birthday" on this little banner. So I'm going to go ahead and put the reveal wheel part that I put together onto my card base. And I keep using blocks to kind of hold stuff down while the glue dries. And then that piece along the bottom of the frame that's kind of unfinished, I'm going to cover that up with my sentiment banner. So now my seaweed is coming out from behind my banner. I think it looks awesome. So I've already colored a little diver and the little eel here. And I'm just going to take them and sort of tuck them behind some of that seaweed that I didn't glue all the way down, so they look like they're swimming in the seaweed at the bottom of the ocean. And then I added some bubbles at the top because the submarine is very close to the top and it's kind of visually off to me, but I felt that the bubbles sort of going off the side of the card made it make a little more sense. And then I'm going to add some Studio Kadia iridescent bubbles just for a couple more accents. I think these look really awesome on these underwater cards. I just love that shimmer on those bubbles. And then here is that finished card with the little smiley faces that spin around inside that submarine. It's just so much fun and so cute. I love the background too, it's so pretty. So here's another look. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.